Welcome to my proposal presentation. I want to give you an overview of my research topic on online learning. Institutions are making decisions to invest in online learning programs despite that many questions about the online learning environment. Before making these decisions, response to economic pressure and learner demands, institutions need to identify characteristics and behaviors that enable students to be successful in an online learning environment. I believe there is a need for qualitative research of the topic centering on teachers and students' opinions, beliefs, and experiences of online learning. Chapter 1 is my introduction. Online learning has been on the rise since the early 90s. Today, there are many public schools at the secondary level that are offering online classes for high school credit. Online education is no passing phenomenon. There is no reason to think that it might replace the actual physical classroom instruction, but online education has shown staying power, and educators will have to adjust to the new electronic environment. The purpose of the study. The purpose of the study was to explore teacher and students' perceptions of effective online learning. In reviewing the background, institutions are making decisions to invest in online learning programs despite the questions about online learning. Before making these decisions, like I said in my summary, we need to identify characteristics and behaviors that enable students to be successful in an online learning environment. With the increase of online instruction, which seems to have happened overnight, teachers are finding themselves rushed to transfer courses from face-to-face or a traditional classroom setting to the online format. In my model of inquiry, or the theoretical framework, I'm looking at Strawson's grounded theory and also active interviewing model. These are areas that I'll discuss later that I believe I need to add some more to in my research. And looking at the statement of the problem, effective online instruction depends on the learning experiences appropriately designed and facilitated by knowledgeable educators. The problem is that online learning can be challenging because students have to learn both the course content and how to learn online. In a face-to-face classroom, an engaging environment needs to be established early, consistently maintained, and sustained through positive interaction that build trust and promote student involvement in a higher level learning. Teachers focus on creating an environment which all students feel a sense of belonging, but what does that look like in an online environment? My research questions are: how do students perceive and describe their learning experience in a face-to-face learning environment compared to an online learning environment? Also, how do teachers develop a rich online learning environment for students comparable to a face-to-face learning environment? Also in Chapter 1, I've included definitions of terms, and basically I've gone in and picked very common terms that maybe need more explanation. In Chapter 1, I know I need more information on my models of inquiry or theoretical framework. I believe that I need to work on the wording on my research questions, and I feel when I meet with my committee chair, I'll be able to finalize the actual wording of what those research questions will be. Also, in including definitions, I want to make sure that I'm really adding definitions for clarification and not just to have them. So I do want to review what I'm including to make sure that I have what I need. Chapter 2 is my literature review. In exploring the use of technology in the design and success of online learning, it is important to remember that every individual has a unique learning style. Some learn actively and interactively, others focus on the facts, some prefer visual forms, and some learn from written or oral explanations. Educators express concern and perceptions that online learning is not as effective as face-to-face instruction. Their concerns relate to the students' motivation and maturity levels, study habits, and organizational skills, as well as their academic preparedness. Regardless of these concerns, the decision to embrace online learning has made the majority of schools move forward to their program and looking to expand them in the future. Many theorists have developed numerous ideas concerning human motivation. However, two primary theories, namely Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Glasser's choice theory, avail a platform for assessing the school learning environment, particularly the learning experience. Maslow developed the hierarchy of needs based on significant research surrounding motivation, starting from the most basic level and moving up to the higher level needs. Students' perceptions are not new. Their value is sometimes overlooked and doubted. These perceptions are vital in understanding learners' educational experiences because they experience all the learning environments entail firsthand. Glasser's choice theory addresses students' needs, some of which can be considered higher-level needs with Maslow's hierarchy. According to Glasser, students view and categorize people and experiences in reference to their quality world. When learners place people or experiences within their quality worlds, it is because they establish the pieces to be most satisfying to their needs. Glasser's choice theory is one that works well to build upon Maslow's findings. Students cannot be forced to learn. Rather, students choose whether to include learning experiences in the quality world or not. Students' perceptions are the reality, so it is critical that educators take time to survey and understand and respond to the learner's ideas. School connectedness. School connectedness is a multidimensional aspect that is composed of elements such as power, commitment, belonging, beliefs, and rules. It is the belief by students that adults and peers in the school care about their learning and their well-being. It is related to educational motivation and performance. Students are more likely to engage in healthy behaviors and succeed academically when they feel connected to the school. In a school setting, students feel supported and cared for when they see school staff dedicating their time, interest, attention, and emotional support to them. That is why I ask, what does that look like in an online environment? Capturing Kids' Hearts is a research-based process designed to strengthen students' connectedness to school through enhancing protective factors and targeting modifiable risk factors. One thing that makes CKH different is that it is a process, not a program. Through his experience working with at-risk youth, Flip Flippin saw the need for a program to help adults create meaningful and healthy relationships with children and youth. Good classroom management, including having a set routine and guidelines, adequate planning, and fair consequences for misbehaviors are critical in establishing a positive school environment and increasing school connectedness. The community of inquiry model developed by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer suggests that school, teaching, and cognitive presence are important elements to promote successful educational experiences in online learning environments. The model itself is a learning environment that must be built through imparting students with the desire to learn actively and the orientation toward critical thinking. The COI model shows the transactions between the instructor, learner, and the course materials. This model was developed to identify those elements crucial for successful higher educational experience, whether teachers and students interact around the content and with one another to develop a true community of inquiry. Three key elements of online learning are the three kinds of presence, namely social, teaching, and cognitive. Social presence is the ability of participants in the COI to project their personal characteristics into the community and presenting themselves as real people to other participants. Social presence has emerged as a significant social factor in the field of distance learning. It has been suggested that the instructor had the primary responsibility for creating social presence. Focusing on the development of an effective classroom environment does especially well to address the deficiency needs, but leaves room for instructional met needs to significantly impact the growth needs. Teacher presence refers to being visible to learners in either distance or face-to-face classrooms. There have been concern about the role of a teacher's presence, how it influences learning over distance, and barriers to online learning. Students and teachers alike may fear the faceless education. There is a positive correlation between increased engagement with support and care from teachers and positive learning. For ultimate success in an asynchronous online environment, the perceived teacher presence should be positive and friendly, knowledgeable, empathetic, and consistent. In essence, teachers need to be visible to be engaged with and caring for learners every step of the way through their learning journey, of which they may embark together. Theory of establishing and sustaining instructor presence to enable student learning states that the perception of the instructor's presence results from the learner-instructor relationship that is established and sustained through 4 phases of the instructor's activity and student's response. This continues back with cognitive presence. Cognitive presence is described as the ability of the student to construct meaning from content through sustained communication with other members of the COI. Cognitive presence is the most critical to student success, and it represents a vital part of critical thinking, which is the goal of all higher education. Through the evaluation of student perceptions of technology use, there is a strong positive relationship between using technology for educational purposes and participation in effective educational practices like active and collaborative learning and student-instructor interaction. Online learning has the potential to improve learning outcomes by replacing lecture time with the group and individual work that engages students more actively in learning, enabling greater motivation and deeper learning. Online learning environments are often described as highly individualized and differentiated. There is a growing need to examine online instruction in K-12 schools, especially at the secondary levels, to inform policymakers at federal, state, and local governing agencies who are considering how to expand the use of technology to improve instruction. The most important aspect of teaching is learning. Although online education represents a different form of course delivery, it is subjective to the same need for monitoring and assessment as traditional forms of instruction. In looking back at Chapter 2, some areas that I would want to consider working on would be cognitive, because it seems to be very basic, and I feel I need to include more research about the area of community of inquiry, or COI, since it is critical to student success. I'm still trying to determine if I need to include the theory of establishing and sustaining presence to enable student learning. Either I need to find additional information or remove this part. Overall, in my literature review, I feel that I've covered enough research to justify why I believe there's a need to research student perceptions. I do believe as I continue this process, I will find additional research that can be included. Chapter 3, Methodology. The purpose of the study. The purpose of the study was to explore the perception of effective online learning. A great deal of evidence exists showing that no significant difference should be expected regarding the effectiveness of well-designed online learning compared to a well-designed in-person learning. The significant difference still exists in the way students perceive their online experiences during learning. The significant differences still exist in the way students perceive their online learning experience. Student readiness for online learning can be a concern for many. K-12 online courses should be able to prioritize, work, and balance the demands of online coursework with other activities, having the ability to work independently, approach online courses with the same commitment and motivation as a traditional classroom, and be able to dedicate 8 to 10 hours a week for each online course. The online learning environment requires students to take responsibility for their learning. In the research design, the overall purpose of qualitative research is to achieve an understanding of how people make sense out of their lives, delineate the process of meaning, and make and describe how people interpret what they experience. A case study methodology will be used for this research. The participants that are selected for the study are students enrolled in the English 4 online course and one traditional face-to-face English 4 class. These students are in the 12th grade, and this course is a graduation requirement. One teacher has been selected that teaches both the online and the face-to-face traditional class. For data collection, data will be generated through face-to-face interviews with participants in my office during the school day. During the observation process, the T-test rubric will be utilized. Surveys will be collected from students at the beginning of the study and as a follow-up. The Likert scale will be used because it is an accessible format that provides data to measure the intensity or extent of opinions of participants. The surveys will also consist of open-ended questions that are relevant for follow-up questions to include a qualitative account of the student's perspective. Interviewing is often the primary data collect strategy in a qualitative study. The interview process will consist of open-ended questions related to the initial survey questions. The data analysis. The researcher is the primary instrument for the data collection and analysis. Since understanding is the goal of this research, the human instrument, which can be immediately responsive and adaptive, would seem to be the ideal means of collecting and analyzing data. In writing my Chapter 3, I'm writing based on what I want to do, but realize that I will have to go back and change to what I actually did, which can come across a little confusing. As I mentioned earlier, I feel that I need to do some more revising on my research questions after I meet with my committee chair. Additional things that I need to work on are the actual survey and interview questions, and then I'll be able to go back in and add more information into Chapter 3 that gives more detail about them. Also, exactly after I have the interview and the survey questions, I'll be able to explain the results and how they'll be interpreted. As I continue in this process, to move forward, I know I need to finish Chapters 1 through 3, finalize my dissertation committee, set up a meeting with the committee, present my proposal, receive approval from the IRB to do my study, begin observations, interviews, and surveys, start, write, and finish chapters 4 and 5 with data and results, and then defend my dissertation. And looking at the projected timeline, I would be able to finish and participate in summer graduation. I believe by sticking to the timeline it is possible, but I do know it will be a tight schedule. If I can get all my approvals and research completed in the spring semester, then I could write up my findings and results to defend my dissertation at the end of the summer session. Thank you for taking time to review my presentation. If you have any comments, suggestions, please let me know. I appreciate any feedback. Thank you.